Okay, welcome to 5 days challenge belief camp. Today's day 3, and actually this is take 2 of my day 3 because the first round it seems like the microphone was not working and I was talking for the entire 30 minutes without the sound. So I hope this is working. So I'm tuning into the Soul Purpose group maybe 2 hours later than the actual lifetime. And if you're watching replay via email or YouTube, there you have it. Now, I want to use this as an opportunity to begin sharing with you how I actually shift the perspective, right? So one of the things that I talk about in my study groups that I run is that whenever you encounter something that you see and feel as a problem or obstacle, and then we call this contrast, right? So I dedicated my time for 30 minutes to come in, and then boom, there you have it. There's no sound, right? People might get disappointed with that usually, right? But the moment that happens, you tell yourself, okay, perfect. Because every single thing that happens is perfect if you make it so, right? So then you sort of begin shifting your attention to maybe there was something that was designed or supposed to happen. So this take 2 that I'm sharing right now in front of you is going to have something different that I needed to share. Does that make sense? So sometimes you might need to get used to navigating your awareness and attention to that, right? Some of the stuff you might feel like, oh, this was awful, right? But then there's no benefit in us going to that emotional place. So the relationship with contrast is something that I'm gonna be talking about more on day 4. But something that I wanted to give you as a anticipation, right? So I have different projects that are laid out on my day, but then I did have a little bit of space to come back to do this. So this is perfect. Okay, so that's a little intro of today. So we are talking about belief camp, and the entire purpose of this challenge is for you to dive in to be able to cultivate the belief that you want to cultivate, to be able to express yourself fully. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about full expression. And here you go, right? Now, because I rehearsed it already using take 1, my mind is very, you have an order of what exactly you want to talk about, so it becomes more effective. So on day 1, I talked about anatomy of belief. And the purpose of day 1 is for us to be on the same page, what belief is, and also to help you bring your awareness attention to pay attention to your belief. Because if I am sharing, what I'm sharing is true, which is the universal law of cause and effect. The outside world is a mirror, reflection, and after effect of the inside cause. The inside cause is your becoming and a belief and the mind. All we want to do and pay attention to is to observe the belief and to be able to shift it when something is not congruent, or you're not enjoying something, or you're not seeing what you exactly want to be seeing, right? And something that I share in the take 1 video that I want to share again is that many people, their attention is in the outside because we are so accustomed to live our life becoming dependent on the 5 senses. 5 senses, see, hear, smell, taste, touch, are the language of the 3D world. So you have a space and you are able to move the body and you see and hear and smell and taste, right? Now, then when you see a problem or challenge or obstacles or something you want to change in the outside, it's a natural inclination to focus on the outside to change it, right? But if the inside is the cause of the outside, what that really means is that you change and fix, or whatever, however you want to call it. Sometimes people don't like the term fixing, right? To create a shift to meet your desire. How about that, right? So when you create a shift to meet your desire in the outside, if the inside is causing the outside, what do you think that is going to happen? What do you think that's going to happen? What's going to happen is that, okay, temporarily that gets fixed, but because the inside is remaining the same, you will be manifesting another something similar that wasn't congruent with your desire in a different way. So it's interesting, right? When we begin understanding that the life canvas is something that informs how we're vibrating inside, who we're becoming inside, then you start using that as a feedback to turn our attention inside. So because the universe is impersonal, and it doesn't really matter how universe bring something towards you. It could be through the avenue of health, it could be through the avenue of business, it could be through the avenue of a relationship, right? So often, for most people who are living based on the logical, rational mind, when the problem arises and then you change it, you think that you solved it. But if you haven't addressed the cause inside that was creating the outside, the universe is gonna create another way to inform you to pay attention to that inside that you haven't just yet changed. Does that make sense? So that's why I want to pay attention to the belief, right? Now, on day 2 yesterday, I talked about the 2 layers of belief. The first layer of belief is to bring something that you thought that was impossible into your lane, into your journey, right? So you start believing that it's possible, but possibility is still keeping it in the future. Now, the second layer is to believe that it's done. Now, I'm gonna explain that in a little bit different way today. Now, I mentioned about, okay, going outside and gravity exists so you stay grounded on the floor. You don't need to believe that because you're experiencing it directly, right? The sun rises, right? You don't need to believe so, but you are experiencing it directly. So the second layer of belief, believing that it's done in your subconscious mind, is to create that direct experience that's already so using your mind without having that 3D physical world change. You create that through imagination and the feeling in the body. Yeah, feeling in the body. So believing that it's done is really about you create that direct experience of completion using your imagination and the association of the feeling. Yeah, so that's day 2. Now, today we're going to be talking about the art of receiving, which has something to do with the sense of worthiness. The sense of worthiness. Now, before I dive into the day 3, let me share a little bit about what I have experienced over the years, right? And to really understand and discern your ideas and opinion that might be coming from your personality, which is your ego level, and that is coming from the deepest desire, right? So if you are feeling that your life is okay the way it is right now, and in the terminology that many people use is my life is fine. Yeah, fine is the language of the ego. Yeah, because the nature of the soul is forever seeking a fuller expression. Yeah, and I often say that the favorite part of this sentence is fuller, because full is full usually in the material sense. Whoop, I just spilled water. But fuller, why do we say fuller? Because there's no end to it. It's an infinite possibility, right? So let's take a moment to imagine a seed inside of the soil, and then you water it to nurture it, and the seed turns into a flower to blossom. Yeah. Now the flower has an expression, a full expression to shine. Yeah. So humans, all of us, are the same. We are here, the soul seed is seeking fuller expression. So the question that we want to ask is, are we fully expressing our potential? Yeah. The difference between the flower and the human is that we have an ability to think, we have an ability to desire something, right? The full expression of flower is inherent and it just happens, right? Flower doesn't think about the possibility, impossibility of the future, or the past trauma, or the upbringing, childhood upbringing, right? The seafood upbringing, right? Flower doesn't think so, but it just does the thing that the nature gave flower what to do, which is to express fully, to shine. So in the natural world, because we humans are part of the natural world, nature, yeah, and then we have given an ability to creatively think, to create something. Yeah. So the only thing that we want to focus on is to notice whether we're using the mind in a creative way or using the mind in a survival way, because there are two polarity in it. So when somebody says my life is fine, it means that there is a part of us that is operating in a limited way and we're settling, right? So the full expression of shining is the opposite of settling what you think it's okay to be. So when we tap into the seed, the soul energy of the seed of us coming on this earth to express fully, to shine, what is that? What is that version of you that you're expressing fully to shine? And in order to identify that, we want to identify our desire. Because when we are fulfilling our desire fully, that's when we feel shining and expressing ourselves fully, which, you know, there's a fuller version of that. So, does that make sense? So we want to be able to have this contrast, comparison between flower and humans, to be able to recognize and notice how much actually subconsciously we might be limiting our potential or the life that we can experience through our expression. Okay, now that I anchor that sort of prerequisite portion of the receiving, I want to talk about a couple of things. So the worthiness is a feeling in your body that you feel. You feel enough or not good enough, right? Now, how do we really clarify that? You want to begin looking at the world, and there are different inspiration and different people that empower us. And we see those, and you might have this idea of, oh, that'd be awesome for me to do something similar, but you might be at the place where you don't fully believe in your capacity to do, right? Now, the room and the size of the belief, let's just call that way, is depending on most of the time our upbringing, because we tend to absorb all the experience that we have had in the past, because we have something called memory, right? The memory bank is often the fuel of your becoming. The memory bank is often the fuel of your becoming, your identity, of who you think you are, who you feel yourself to be in this world. Yeah. So if you have been rejected by somebody when you're little, that might have, created some sort of feeling inside of you based on your perception, and that might create a sense of self, of how you see and feel yourself in the world that you perceive, right? Not in the world that is, but in the world that you perceive. You position yourself and the feeling in a certain way, and you might feel smaller than somebody, or you might feel bigger than somebody, right? So you have some sort of unconscious positioning of how you see and feel yourself in this world. Yeah. And then, so from there, what we want to do is to begin also understanding that all those identity components inside of us is something that we might have absorbed by our parents. If you are surrounded by parents who are, let's say, negative, or having a sense of not accepting you fully, or if they were having a tendency of being worried about something, you grew up watching and feeling those, and that might have become shaped as a part of your personality, right? Then when you get to your adult, you start wondering, okay, that becomes your sort of container of how you feel about you and how you see the world. Yeah. So there is some sort of limitation that we all have created along the way to limit our full expression to shine. Yeah. So your mental concept of who you see yourself as, what you think about you, is called self-concept or self-image, right? The image of you in your mind. And your subconscious mind, your body, is a feeling place. So you feel yourself as worthy or not worthy, or enough or not good enough, or strong or powerful, or whatever the image and the feeling that you feel yourself to be, right? That creates a certain belief about you in the world. So in order to cultivate the belief based on your desire, we must recognize those roadblocks that we inherited. And then when we begin really looking at the spiritual aspect of life, all those, I can call it contamination, or, the author of Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, talks about parasite, right? We sort of receive all those parasites to limit us, right? In the Bible, you talk about, that Adam and Eve ate the fruits, right? That ate the fruit. The fruits is the toxification of the mind. You ate that fruit, and you become programmed to see yourself and feel yourself in a certain way that limits us from expressing ourselves fully to shine. Yeah. So we want to understand that process, and then also we want to acknowledge and embrace that all those processes happen for a reason for all of us. But in order to experience a false version of us, so we can wake up into who we truly are. That is the nature of the relative realm, right? A physical world is a place of contrast, is a place of having both happiness and sadness, having pain and pleasure, light and darkness. And then we go through that process of experiencing who we are not, the limited version of ourselves in the mind, so that we can work on ourselves to remember who we are. All of these are designed in what I call the divine blueprint. Yeah. So then what we want to focus on is how can we work on becoming open to receive. Becoming open to receive. If you're not feeling worthy enough, you might be subconsciously pushing something away from you. It could be a meaningful relationship. It could be a certain level of health. It could be financial stuff, money. There's a lot of people who have this, money resistance that pushes away from you, right? That's all the resistance of not being willing to receive fully, right? And when we begin identifying ourselves as those false stories, that resistance comes up. But where we want to transcend into is that you and I and each one of us, all humans, are just a portal that we create circulation. What do I mean by that? So if I give something, so for instance, I am right now offering this awareness and idea. Yeah, let's just call this, I am giving this to you. Now, if you're listening to, watching, writing notes, whatever you're doing, you're receiving. If you're getting something out of you, you're receiving it, right? And you start speaking and interacting with somebody else in your life, and maybe you give a little advice or share something. Now you're becoming a giver, and the person who is receiving, right? So the giving and receiving exchange is happening all the time. And when we begin dropping our identification to the individuality, this dynamic is our giving and receiving. But when we zoom out and look at the whole picture, each one of us is simply a portal and vessel to create a flow of circulation. Because the more things flow, right, it could be, the circulation could be generated through understanding, attention, or it could be monetary, it could be helping somebody, right? So it happens through interaction, interaction, because we are interactional creatures, we cannot feel good and healthy without having an interaction. That's why we call wellness versus illness. When we focus on the we, the collectiveness, we facilitate health, wellness. And then when you start focusing on the I, which is about focusing on not being able to receive stuff, right? Then you start sort of leaning into illness, right? So that's more the symbolical meaning of what health is, but the symbolical meaning is embedded in our collective consciousness, collective unconsciousness per se, right? So life is not about you, but everybody else whose life you touch. That was the quote that I learned by Neil Donald Walsh, who was my first spiritual mentor. And what that really means is that life is about expanding our awareness so we can touch other people through our giving. But because the reason that life is not about you, but it's about everybody else, is that when you attain your awareness, you're attaining that in order to give. Now, whatever that you're doing, right, take a moment to notice that you don't have anybody to give. So for instance, what I do is I share awareness. I share a principle of this life and who we are, universal law, the idea and understanding of spirituality to help all of us becoming more aware of, right? Now, if I learn all of this and if I cannot share to anybody, this information and awareness becomes meaningless. Yeah. So whatever that you're doing, take a moment to notice or imagine a world that you don't have an opportunity to give and share to anybody else. That would be very boring, right? And that would be meaningless. That would be the perfect words to describe. So then the attainment and the expansion of awareness is in order to give. And when we begin giving, we are initiating the flow of circulation. So I hope this is helping you to kind of zoom out a little bit and drop the false stories or some sort of sense of unworthiness and begin realizing that we are here to fully shine. And how do we shine it? By focusing on giving through your habit, right? And when you start, it's kind of interesting. It's like chicken and an egg, but when you start giving, you will start attracting more up because you're initiating that circulation, a flow of circulation. So when you start focusing on the I, you start thinking about what others are thinking of you. You know, you start focusing on becoming worried about the lack of recognition or acceptance, right? That's an I focus, right? But when you zoom out and you transcend about all those stories and then begin becoming the proactive initiator of the flow of circulation, you will soon realize that receiving is easy and receiving is no different from giving because we are all one. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the inner transformation question. So just to give you a reminder, transformation is all about changing, the formation of your feeling inside, because the feeling inside is the important part of shaping your identity, right? So by asking and answering all these questions, you're working on shifting your feeling about you. Question number one, identify one person who you deeply respect and admire. Now, take a moment to picture that person, and that person has the energy that inspires you. And most of the time, when somebody inspires us, that's because that person is expressing fully and shining. Expressing fully and shining. Now, why do we want to express ourselves fully and shine? Because the more you shine, the brighter your light becomes. And when you step closer to somebody who is not shining enough, That's because that person is not accepting the light within them. But when we come closer to that person and give your light that you're shining by going closer and touching, that person being able to see the light within them. That is the domino effect that we're creating through all the avenues. For me, it's an awareness expansion. For somebody, it might be teaching skill. For somebody, it might be being a mother. Yeah, different avenues, but expressing ourselves fully and shining is to help others see the light in them to shine. Yeah. So identify one person who you deeply respect and admire because you see the light in that person. Yeah. Number two, what feels different when you see this person and yourself side by side? Identify three things. So the way that in which you have been seeing yourself or feeling yourself might be different from how you see and feel about that person who you admire and respect. Yeah. And then you want to sort of tap into the difference in the feeling. Now, feeling is very intangible. You cannot see it and you can only feel it, right? So you're going to drop yourself into the difference of feeling. And the goal, of course, is to begin borrowing that feeling of the person that you respect and admire and begin making that feeling your feeling when you think and feel about yourself. Yeah, we're sort of examining our internal state. And then lastly, what exact subconscious belief about you needs to be nurtured? Nurturing the belief about you. Begin practicing seeing yourself differently, borrowing how you see that person that you admire and respect, and begin creating an internal state. It doesn't really matter what's happening in outside. So we're focusing fully inside to be able to see and feel you differently, borrowing that feeling that you feel when you think of that person and begin nurturing your belief. So there you have it. Those are the three questions. Now, tomorrow we're going to come back for day 4, talking about meeting the contrast. So that's one of the two things that sort of makes most people stuck, along with this sense of worthiness. There are two places that people get stuck. Past, present, familiar version of self, which we talked about, how to transcend above the sense of worthiness, the full story. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about the external obstacles, what appears to be negative in the 3D world, and how to relate to that so you can consistently working on cultivating the belief, the reflect, the desire that you want to be creating. Okay, so comment below. If you're receiving this via email, you can email me back for any questions or any comments. Share the takeaway under YouTube comments or in the Soul Purpose group. And the more you participate proactively, the more you can anchor, because your words and a voice that you express has energy, and that intention will give you an ability to claim it. Okay, so see you tomorrow.